Your friend has got a lot to share.
And welcome to another edition of Radio Friends again. It's the 14th of June. I'm Steve Parker here in Berlin, Connecticut. And we got Pete Sealant up there. Hi, Pete. How you doing?
Hi, Steve.
Ted Dalico's with us. Hi, Ted Dalico. How you doing?
Good.
We got Dave Overson over there. Hi, Dave.
Hi, everybody. I'm outside on my deck. This is it.
Tracy Carmen is the middle square this week. Bob,
Yeah, I feel like Paul Lynn.
Bob, all the way from Philadelphia.
Yeah, Dave looks like he was waving. He looked like one of the Musketeers.
I'm a net. Oh, boy.
John Landry's back from
How are you?
Marlboro, East Hampton, right?
I'm still in Middletown.
Middletown, okay.
I haven't let him out yet.
I'll be in East Hampton.
Lee Gordon's down in the swamp, affectionately known as WPOP. And there's Ron Pell in his brand new homestead out there in what? Now you're a new
Cheshire,
place, but still in Cheshire,
It's
right?
the Shire. We call it the Shire.
And you were originally just a few feet away in that far end of Southington, right?
That's where I am, right in the line. Yeah.
Right on the line. All right. Well, let's see if we can get everything screwed up here this morning. So, yeah, we are doing a kind of a promotional segment. I wanted to do.
That was a question I wanted to ask the guys. So you're talking about golf tournaments and things like that. Yeah, I assume they still have like broadcasters row or radio stations or TV stations would show up at the Travelers. What as broadcasters and programmers, do you think it really added a lot of value to be at the event? Like, oh, we got to be out there, thousands of people. We got to be visible. We got to be out there. Do you think it makes a difference?
May I answer that? It yes and no. Yes for the radio station, because it looks like you're part of the community and everybody's together. Has it any effect on whether listeners are going to listen in because you're at the GHO? No. It won't. No.
Yeah, but I think what you said, it's important to be able to show up at that, because I remember TIC, we used to be out there all the time. DRC went out there, and it was always good just to be visible because all the media's there. Every TV station's there, and I think when you're not there, well, especially back in the day when you weren't there, you were I think they noticed that you weren't there because pretty much everybody was.
Yeah, I think
TIC had their booth right on the 18th green, so everybody who was on the course could see the call letters and everything. In the old days, we were all in the back of the parking lot, so anybody coming in could see it. But then they built the media center, and so all the radio stations and everybody except the TV stations who have booths up next to the clubhouse, everybody else is not visible to the public anymore, other than TIC if they're still by the 18th green, and the TV stations who are there. But it used to be that everybody lined up, had their vehicles lined up right in the back of the parking lot, and everybody could see that you were there.
I think one of the keys from a programming point of view is you can't make a big deal out of that, and you can't be too involved with where you are, because you're taking away from the audience who is actually listening out there in radio land. So you can't make a big issue out of being there, but the presence, like Dave said, is great, community and all that, but don't spend too much time at it.
And doesn't Bob Craig sound better than ever this week?
Delicious, absolutely.
He does.
Delicious, yes.
Still looks ugly, but he still sounds good.
We tried everything. Pete helped me with the sound yesterday.
When it was still in
when
the TPC was, when it was JC's Open and it was still in Wethersfield, TIC used to go out there. I was in the broadcast booth and we'd be out there. And I think the only advantage we had there, and not only the visibility, because they had that trailer out there, but we did get some of the personalities in. I got to talk to Sammy Davis Jr. Bryant Gumbel had just started on the Today Show there and made the changeover. Some of the golfers came in. With Arnold Dean brought some of the golfers in. So they did. The audience that was listening at home did get an extra boost and identifier of TIC being in the community. But they were always the big call letters anyway at the time in the legacy station. So it made a big difference. I think if they were not there, it would have seemed more obvious that something was wrong than because they are there.
Well,
And
you
they
know,
used to have some
by the
big
time
deal
it's-
people too.
I
You
know.
know, when Sammy Davis was the titular host of the thing, they had Bob Hope,
Oh, yeah.
they had
Jackie
Gerald
Gleason was
Ford, Jackie Gleason. They had the you know the biggest names in show business to come for Pro-Am Day and for that concert that they used to do at
Tuesday night.
Yeah, it was, I think it added something to the programming, whether it enhanced the image, Ron, I don't know, whether to change it. You did have to still make time for other commercials and other stuff going on, which is one of the issues that you always
Got a
balance.
few more guys joining us this morning. So let's see. Dave Nagel just jumped on. Hi, Dave. Got
Morning.
Jim Harrington's here. Jack Lawrence is here. Hi, guys.
Morning. Good morning.
Good.
Morning.
All right. Yeah, we're just talking about some. How many other than here in Hartford? Have any of you other guys, when you've been in different parts of the country, covered golf tournaments? I mean, is that something? No.
For radio, no, but TV, you know, you had, you know, a lot of, if you were lucky, you get to go on a remote
radio play-by-play. I'm sorry.
No, we would do golf. Doing a golf remote was fun because the first 2 days you worked your butt off because you had to string all the cables out there, and then once the tournament was on, you just kind of hung around making sure there's no problems. And but the last day, striking the set was really that was hard work, and we'd be there for up to 12 hours. But the worst thing is if it rains. If it's raining, you got to take all that cable in. You're a mess after because all the mud is all over you and that. At Weathersfield, what I think CBS did is they buried all their cables and kept the cables in there all year long. So all they had to do was go in and dig out the cables and hook up the mics at the tees, and then they just had to get the robotic cameras. I remember DRC having a little tit-tat with CBS. We had a Marty unit, and our Marty unit was, you know, working for going back to Hartford. Wayne just got it. And so we had set it up, we got it working, and CBS comes rolling into our booth. You guys have a Marty unit? I go, yeah. And he says, turn it off and turn it off now. I says, who says? CBS. We're CBS. We have to. And I said to him, do you have a frequency clearance for this area? And the guy just looked. He goes and grabs the EIC engineer in charge, brings him in, and I says, do you have your? I got the certificate. We've got clearance for this area, and CBS didn't. They didn't have it. So the guy said, what can we do to help you? All of a sudden, they changed their demeanor. And I says, well, we want to give us some lines. We'll do phone network and that. Okay, what lines do you use? You use a 5, 10, 15 KC? I says, no, 10 KC is good enough. For most of our remotes, we only use the 5 KC in this way. And so they got the phone company hooked on it right away. And I remember Wayne coming back from Portland. He was at the station up in Portland, came in and heard the station, and he goes, wow, he says, that Marty is really clear. That's unbelievable. So he gets to the GHO and he says, that Marty works great. He says, we're not using the Marty. We're using a phone line. Then he starts getting hissy, and I says, it's a 10 KC line, Wayne, and we're not paying for it. And so then he changed. He says, oh, okay.
Yeah, the magic words, we're not paying for it.
That's it. That's exactly right, Jeff.
Yeah, CBS paid for the whole thing, got it hooked up, and normally, as I said, we use a 5 KC equalized line. This time we had a 10 KC equalized line. They want to know if we had 15, if we wanted a 15. Well, 15 is used mostly for television back in the day. And I said, no, 10 KC is fine. 10 KC equalized line is fine. They hooked it all up, and the rest is history. So.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a show that we've carried on TIC. First and foremost, when we had Arnold Dean with 1080, everybody in the sports world knew Arnold Dean. So we didn't have any problem being anywhere on the course. And he pulled over just about everybody came in to be interviewed by Arnold Dean. And the interesting thing about Arnold, for people that have been in the market for a long time, he was the dean of sports and all this stuff. But way before the dean of sports, he was just an amazing broadcaster.
Oh God, yeah.
He knew
Yeah, he
music
was.
inside out. He knew big bands. He knew everything. And one of the funniest lines was when I was talking to him. I said, I enjoyed listening to him because it was Arnold. He was just an interesting guy. And I said, I'm not a real sports guy. He goes, Steve, neither am I. It's like,
Yeah.
he was a great broadcaster, whatever the mission.
His real name was Arnold D'Angelo,
Yeah.
and he was on the air with Tom McCarthy. This is after they were trying to get rid of Bob Dunn was trying to get Bob Steele off of TIC, which was impossible because Bob Steele, they had to carry him out, and I think they did. And so they did the first part of the show would be Tom McCarthy and Arnold Dean, and then I think Bob Steele was doing like 1 hour or something like that. Anyway, but Brad would go on the air and he said, "Hey, I just want to shout out and a welcome to my good friend Arnold D'Angelo. I know he'll be listening this morning." And it was like an inside joke because everybody knew it was Arnold Dean, but in the radio business, who's Arnold D'Angelo?
Yes.
Arnold was the nicest guy. Absolutely the nicest guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a
It
peak.
was.
I worked with Arnold when I was at TIC. I did Out on the Plaza with him, and I was his engineer there. And if it rained, we went inside. And that's when I learned that he really knew a lot about the big band music and such. But he was a real good guy to work with.
And
He was the brunt of a lot of jokes.
He was, but
And I
he's
think
a great straight man too, though. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
he would feed you lines. I did for 2 weeks. I sat in for Bob Steele with Arnold Dean. They wanted because Dean was doing the sports, and in those 2 weeks, that's when I really got to know him because he had been on before that, and you just know the sports guy. He was in and out, and he was always on the phone talking to people, and we really I thought we were hitting it off pretty well, and the play. I mean, he would set me up for stuff, and I could feed stuff, and he'd come back on. It was really great. And then at the end of 2 weeks, Perry Uri came up. I said, he said, "Okay, Bob's back." And I said, "Okay, great. So what do you think?" He said, "You guys laugh too much."
Oh God.
I said, "Excuse me? You laugh too much."
Bob and Tom?
You were having too good a time. God forbid the audience might laugh a little bit too. I mean, that would be terrible.
I think Dave Overson, I think you did the last interview with Arnold Dean, didn't you?
Yeah, Gary Byron and we were doing a show called Common Sense Connecticut out of NCTV, and we did the last interview with Arnold Dean, and I think Bill Hennessy was there. Bill's still doing well, thank God. And I just saw Bill the other night and had dinner with him, and I try to think of John Ramsey was part of the coast. That's where we talked about his book, Hartford Radio, and it was a good interview. Everything was nice, and little do we know that would be his last interview for the Hartford area for forever, because he died a week later.
Mm-hmm. And I owe to good, bad, or indifferent. These years that I've been on 1080 was because of Arnold, and I was at his wake. I was one of the last, of course, late always, and he was late, but I was, late. And I run into the funeral home and just the family there and pay my respects. And as I'm walking out, the head of CBS for Hartford, Suzanne McDonald, walks right into me, and she just matter-of-factly says, "Don't you think you should do something for us?" I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Yeah, you should do something for us." And at that point, I had just left Channel 8 after all those years. And I just said, and I really was like, I was just thrilled. But she told me later, Bob Kurzman had passed away, and we were at the synagogue, and she walks over to me and she goes, "You want to know how I knew about your family's history in Hartford radio?" I said, "How?" She goes, "Arnold Dean told me." So I thought that was really, really wild. But it was, it was Arnold Dean. I mean, but again, just like a lot of you guys, sports is interesting if you're interesting. I mean, you could listen to him. Even Joe D I enjoyed because there was so much more to that person than just sports. So they could ad lib a lot, and they were really interesting.
Arnold had one fault. One fault. His fault was he was too nice of a guy. Sometimes you got to get rid of listeners, especially bad listeners who call in and are, Arnold was so nice. He would let these people go on. And I mean, it didn't hurt his ratings because his ratings were still at that time. He was on at 6 o'clock at night. We did a sports show. It was still phenomenal. but he was just such a nice guy, on the air. I think that's why people loved him, but he was too
I can
nice.
tell you a story about being Mr. Nice. We used to do a show called Mike Line at TIC.
Oh yeah.
And it was a talk show, and it ran, I think, 2 to 3 in the afternoon, just before Lou Palmer's show. Well, we had Arnold Dean and what's his name? He's lived in Newington there.
Norm Peters.
Yeah, Norm Peters there, and I think George Ehrlich was there. It was a Friday, and this guy calls in and he starts talking about the Red Sox and how nice they were, and I'm in the control room with a producer, and he and I are falling asleep. This guy is just so monotone and that. Well, and Dean, oh yeah, right. Keep trying to keep the conversation. Well, thank you very much, guys. Well, thank you, or thank you for calling. Yeah, okay, good. Go fuck yourselves.
Jesus.
Want to see a producer and the engineer wake up real quick.
Yeah, really.
Because he actually hit it, killed it. It never went on the air, but
Yeah.
but man, that was a classic.
How long a delay were you working off of, Dave?
Pardon?
How long a delay were you working off of?
7 seconds. We had 2
7?
Ampex. Yeah, 5 to 10, 7 seconds. We had 2 Ampexes, one recording the show and the other playing it back. That's how we got our delay there. We didn't have any digital delay system at all.
Yeah,
In fact,
go ahead.
When I went to ESPN, Bill Lamb, who worked at TIC, and he came up to me and says, "We've got to do a 7-second delay for Greg Gumbel's show." And talks something about sports, and it was a phone-in thing. So I said to Bill, and I said, "Can we do that with 1-inch tape?" And he goes, "That's what I was wondering." So we threaded 1-inch tape and dragged it all the way over to the second 1-inch tape, which was just about 7 seconds, actually 8 seconds it was. And we had to keep everybody away out of the tape room because we were using the 2 machines that were further apart. And that machine was on the air, and you had to start 8 seconds early in order to end on time. And it was a pain in the ass. But we did it.
The normal way to do that wasn't the normal way to do that to have a cart machine with the heads reversed so that the playback head was ahead of the normally you get the head that puts the tones on, then the one that
playback
records, and then playback follows it. And if you reverse them and you put like a 7-second, you wind up a cart that has 7 seconds worth of tape on it, and you put it in there, and it records on what would normally be the playback head, and doesn't play back until 7 seconds later when it gets to what would normally be the record head. And that's the standard way they do it now. Well, before digital, that's the standard way.
When I was at BZ, we had the same thing that Dave has, but it was 12 seconds. It was, it literally went from one side of the control room to the other.
Wow.
You could see it go through the pulleys and up and play back. I had an engineer say to me, I said, "What happens if a guy, tells me to go to hell?" Actually, he said something a little more graphic than hell. And the engineer said, "Well, you tell him to go to hell too. We'll take you both off the air."
The delay does work. The cart lead that you were just describing, when I worked at WICH, one of the things I did between 6:30 and 7:30 at night was host a talk show for an hour, and we used exactly the type of cartridge you were discussing, Type C cartridge. It was the playback head, then the erase head, then the record head in the order. And not only did I host the show, I had the tape machine over my shoulder, and no doubt once a week one of them would break. So I always had 3 wound on the shelf fresh because they just didn't hold up. I don't know if they didn't use good splicing tape in Norwich or what, but it just didn't hold up. But yeah. But it was a Type C cartridge, the big ass cartridges
with 7 seconds worth of tape on it.
Exactly. I don't know why they went with such a large cartridge, but that's the machine they had.
Probably because it flowed. It flowed better.
Yeah. We trusted those carts, and I got to tell you, when I was at I did mornings at RCH for a year, and RCQ. and I had to work at 2:00 in Boston. I got off here at noon on Saturday, and I had to be in Boston at 2:00. I guess the statute of limitations is gone, so I can tell the story. But I used to go into the studio early, and I record like the last 20 minutes of my show first, and I put it on a cart. One of those. Do you remember the big carts?
Yeah, big 15-minute carts.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
The 600 series, the big ones.
It was. We fit 20 minutes on it. I don't know. Maybe it's only 15 minutes, but we didn't know, and so I record the last 20 minutes of my show first at whatever time it was, and then I'd do the show, and then I would leave the studio at 20 minutes to the hour, and put the card in. And I had a friend of mine, Dan Foley, who's since deceased. He used to be Dan Phillips on RCQ. He ended up doing a lot of great voice work in New York and being very successful. And but at the time, he was Dan Phillips, and he was protecting my rear end. He figured, look at it. If it breaks, I'll play a lot of spots, and I'll segue some songs. We'll get through it. You'll be okay. And fortunately, I mean, I would drive for that 20-minute period, holding my breath. Yeah, but holding my breath, because I can remember looking at the tape wobble in that big old crappy 20-minute cart and think, why am I doing this? But fortunately, I never missed the show, so it worked out. I mean, a real good story would be that I was like in Sturbridge and the thing went kaflooey. That would be a great story, but unfortunately, yeah, exactly. Well, hello there. Welcome to us.
Jim, one of the coolest situations I had with a delay was after George Carlin had passed away. I wanted to do an interview with his daughter, because his daughter also does, Kelly Carlin, I think her name is. She also does a podcast. And so the agent that I called out in LA says, I can't get her. He says, but I can get you George's older brother, Patrick. Well, Patrick and George used to be together way back. He was, I don't know if he was like a manager or whatever, but they were together and they did some bits together back on the Ed Sullivan Show and some of that. Patrick sounded exactly like George, and he had the same vocabulary where the F word would come out every 7 seconds or so. In fact, I was filling up. He called me before we did the interview, and a couple of days before, and he was so fantastic and a riot. And I had my Bluetooth going through the speakers in my car, and I didn't even want to turn it off. I'd lose them. So I'm pumping gas into the car. Yeah, not a fucking guy. I'm like, just incredible. But when he did come on the air on Saturday, he thought he was still off the air. And I took him a couple of minutes early. And he said, yeah, Steve and I are talking some shit. And I hit the delay button, but my producer hit the delay button. And they said, think we canceled each other out on that one. But
Carlin was actually in Boston for a while doing a two-person
WEZE.
COP?
WEZE.
EZE, yeah.
It was Burns
1260.
and Allen. I think it was not Burns and Allen.
Ray, Bob and Ray?
No, not Bob and Ray. It was Carlin, Burns and Carlin, I think it was. That did.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Morning show on WEZE. This may have been late 50s. This is certainly before the hippy dippy weatherman and all that.
Yeah.
Was this when they were in the Statler Hilton, where you could walk up to them on the street and watch them?
That was EZE, right?
No, I think it was when they were in the Hotel Bradford in Boston, because later on, WEZE, which was then known as WVDA, they were in the Hotel Bradford. It was the first radio station I ever visited because I knew somebody who was doing the big band show there. And that was my entree into
the Bradford Hotel.
Yes. And they had their facilities up there. 1955.
When you talk about the Bradford Hotel, I may have told this story before. When I first got a job at MEX, and I was lost. And some friends at MEX thought, hey, come on over. They're having a press conference over at the Bradford Hotel. I said, what's it about? They said, I don't know, but it's supposed to be big. There's a lot of media there. You'll meet a lot of people. You got to come over. So, I mean, I was like a rube. So I put on my coat and I followed these guys over, and they knew where they were going, but I didn't know. So I go over to the Bradford Hotel. I go into this big ballroom, right? And there's a lot of media there. I mean, there's Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10 from Providence comes up, Channel 12. They're all there. I thought, this has got to be really big. This young woman walks in after a long wait. She walks to the middle of the room and says, "Hi, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'm so-and-so, Miss Nude America 1973, and this is why." And she opens up her robe, and she is naked. And I'm seriously, my mouth. You've seen the cartoon where the mouth just drops to the floor.
Yeah.
That was me. It was like, huh? You guys knew me back in 1973. Some of you knew what I was like. I mean, I was, and I was like, what do I do now? Is this place going to be raided? I've only been in this job for a week, and they shot more video. They shot more footage than they shot for Gone with the Wind. and not a foot of it was shown on television. So I figured it was all shown at Christmas parties.
Right, Christmas party.
But that was my experience with the Bradford Hotel. Is it still there, Bob? Do you know?
I have no idea. All I know
Well,
is they eventually moved, as somebody just mentioned, at the Statler Hotel. WEZE was on the ground floor.
Right in the corner, right?
Yeah,
Trader
exactly.
I used to walk by it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a pain in the ass if you worked there, because people would start pounding on the window.
Well,
face up.
Yeah, they'd make faces at you. It's the
I had an instructor at Graham Junior College that was an announcer at WEZE during those days, and he was telling me that he was doing the overnights one night, and he'd like to go right in there. Instead of going in the back studio, he went to the studio where you could see in the street, and it was sub-zero weather that night, and I guess some kid came out of a party drunk, and he decides to relieve himself on the glass.
Nice.
Put a big crack in it.
What was the name?
Parking is territory.
Who was the announcer?
Don LaTulip.
Oh yeah, that
Is he still around, or I haven't heard from him.
Wow.
That's where WNAC was, where where the school was in Kenmore Square.
Yes.
WNAC AM/FM, which became WRKO, was right there at what was the name of the
Buckminster?
Buckminster. That's it. Yeah.
I remember doing we did a remote broadcast with Jerry Christopher one time, and it was the topping off ceremony of City Place, which is this, huge building that they were building in Hartford. And I don't remember that. I don't remember how many floors it was, but
it's 33.
38.
Yep. And we had
38.
I could see Traveler's Tower. Yeah, we did the big climb there. They for the Rob Branham Foundation, and we cut the promo for it, and we were trying to figure out what we should do for a promo. So I got up on Ron's back like I was riding piggyback, and he's holding me, and I'm looking up on the TV promo, going, "I can see Traveler's Tower." It's like, and it was great. But
that was a PSA that ran quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, when we had the tapping off ceremony, though, it was really cool because we did that morning. We did Jerry's show from there. Jerry had a hard hat hooked up with antennas and everything else, and Wayne coordinated it. And we had to take one of those terrifying elevators to the top while it was still dark outside. But what a remote broadcast that was. He had it all set up with a mic there and all that. But that was wild. A lot of that stuff is really, kind of like, you do it to see. You think we could do that? And a lot of it, I think, comes from the engineers, kind of like with a challenge.
Have you guys,
go ahead.
Have you noticed how over the years, and when we did a remote, right, we brought the show to everything to the audience. We were on the street with the Big D Mobile Studio D or whatever station I was working in, and it was really something to see. Nowadays, when they do a remote broadcast, they go out with a phone.
It's not a remote. It's an appearance.
That they talk into they do cut-ins, from and they sell it. And I don't know. I think a lot of the pizzazz that we brought to it, it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. The showmanship.
The problem is they don't sell it. They don't sell it, Jim. They give it away.
Yep.
So instead of doing a full-scale remote, hey, buy a schedule and we'll throw in an appearance.
Okay.
We'll throw in a 2-hour appearance. John Fuller at full whatever the name of his company is, Full Power. He gives these away and it makes him a lot of money. he does a ton of business with a big auto group in Connecticut. And every Saturday, the guy has like 11 dealerships. Every Saturday, either KISS or DRC or not KISS, but one of his stations
BMW
BMW is doing a 2-hour appearance, and they do 2 call-ins an hour.
Yeah.
That's exactly
so there's
what
nothing
you
really
described.
special.
It's a phone call.
Ron, there's nothing special really about it
Nothing.
anymore.
Absolutely.
No,
It's a throw-in.
They play
Yeah.
stupid games. They spin the wheel, and you win a bumper sticker or something. But but the unfortunate thing is, even DRC found out, depending on the advertiser's frame of mind, you had to make sure when you sold it, you sold the friggin' thing properly. Because if you didn't, if you have 10 people or 5 people standing in front of a remote at a car dealership, the illusion is there's no one there, and the dealer's going, this is a bomb.
What your dad always made sure of is that it was a venue that would have a natural audience.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't go there and expect people to show up in the middle of the woods.
No,
you went to a place where there's already traffic.
Yeah. And we were always told,
to
play the records from there too. Don't play them out of the studio.
Yeah,
that's a real remote. When you're playing the records and you're actually broadcasting live, that's a remote. This is an appearance.
That was the great appeal.
The DJ who's at an appearance is not the DJ who's typically doing the show.
Right.
Who's on the air at that time.
Yeah.
It's another DJ. Oh, we're calling in, and usually it's not even a DJ, it's a promotion person.
Intern.
Hey, Mary Jones, Mary's live and on location at Executive Honda. Mary, come on, what's going on there today, Mary?
Who the hell is Mary?
Yeah,
right, exactly.
She answers the phones during the week.
That was the great appeal.
We did an appearance one time, and I don't even think I was with the station then, but TIC did an appearance, and it was at a garden center, and they had Len and Lisa, who did a show called Garden Talk, had a nice following, and they went out there, and they had the booth, they had everything, and the guy was friggin' wandering. You don't know what he looks like. He's wandering around in the plants somewhere, and he's not even near the booth. The booth didn't even play the radio station. And I went over to the guy, and I'm going, "You're TIC, right?" Yeah. Well, you're not playing it. Oh yeah. Well,
Hey, stop by to Simsbury Toyota and meet our receptionist.
It's nothing more than a sales closer. That's all it was. Hey, we'll throw in an appearance. What's an appearance? Well, we'll come out for 2 hours, and we'll bring our DJ, and we'll bring games and fun and giveaways, and it's going to be fantastic. And 4 people will show up.
Don't forget the hot dogs.
Ron, tell us about the magic.
Oh yeah, gotta have hot dogs. Right.
Tell us about the magic of recorded to sound live.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when I was doing some buying for Ron for CRN, that's the first time I ran into it. You pay X amount of dollars, and you expect live, and they said, "Well, it's recorded to sound live." I said, "What?" They said, "What's recorded?"
You know who started that? iHeart started that.
They did.
Because the programmers were scared that it was something would get screwed up. Whereas if you recorded and they could keep it to 1 minute, it's a 1 minute of call-in, so they could actually do a recorded spot and then throw it in, and basically it just goes into the log as another spot break. So if you're in a spot break, it's the 4th spot of a 12-spot break. We're going to go out to Executive Honda, and here's Mary. And boom, you play a spot. It's Mary. Hi, yeah, we're out here. And she does her 1 minute recorded spot.
It plays itself off the automation.
One of the best remotes I had was with Dick McDonough. Dick McDonough had a captive audience. He had 12 frozen turkeys looking up at him in front of the Mobile Studio D. And Dick is doing the show, and there's nobody there, nobody around them. We're kind of in the street, and everything was just, it was dead. Nobody there, except for these 12 turkeys, frozen turkeys sitting there. And I remember McDonough telling me, he says, "I don't know about you, I'm depressed." He says, "My audience, I get no reaction from them." I swear.
I'll tell you a funny story about Big D, the Mobile Studio. We used to broadcast for many years at the Manchester Road Race.
Yep.
Now, the Manchester Road Race was the biggest Thanksgiving Day road race in the country. There's 15,000 people running in it, plus thousands of spectators. So we were going to do a remote there. Remember the first year. And of course, you had to get there. It was a real remote. So Brad would do his show from there, from Mobile Studio D, and from 6 to 10. And the race went off at 10 o'clock. But by that time, the Brad did all the interviews, and he had the politicians and everything. 'Cause that was a big deal.
You do it.
And I
Yeah.
remember we got there, so I would run the race every year. A couple of years, I actually ran with a big cell phone. People look at me like, "Who's this idiot with a cell phone?" Those days when the cell phones were, back. This is back into the early '90s. So I remember Wayne's out there. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody on Main Street. I'm talking about no one. It's 3 hours before the race, and Wayne comes over to me and he says, "Where is everybody?" I said, "Well, Wayne, it's early. It's early. Believe me, they'll be here." "Well, they better be here." Like, what are we doing here? And then about 9:30, when Main Street is packed and there's thousands of people, he says, "Never mind."
Mhm.
I may have told this before, but I was working for Clint Billups' advertising agency, and
Oh my
also
God, there's a blast from the past.
and also doing weekends at RCQ. And if you've ever seen the episode of WKRP where they do the remote from a stereo store, well, one of our clients was Tunxis Electronics, and they were opening a store in the Capaco Shopping Center. And that episode of WKRP and our remote were absolutely identical except for the armed robbery. Everything else, everything else about the episode, including the fact that nobody, and literally nobody, showed up at the remote except for like a couple of smelly high school kids who were into radio and couldn't afford a stereo if their life depended. But they didn't sell anything, and we're doing the whole thing, and it was like word for word, except for the armed robbery. It was just
Whatever happened to Clint
total
Billups?
bomb.
I knew he moved to Las Vegas. I think.
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
Yep. He does very well out there too. Very well.
Yeah,
Is he?
he had to have one of his legs amputated below the knee, I think. But
Really? Oh.
if have you ever? I'm sure you've all seen those big giant checks that people, somebody
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Clint was before he moved to Las Vegas, and he was living out in Harwinton or somewhere. And I was at a party at his house. He went out to Las Vegas for some function, and he's killing time throwing quarters in a progressive slot machine. He won $500,000.
Wow.
He still has at the time he still had the check. $508,000, this big giant, big giant check.
He managed that famous illusionist Kreskin. That was right.
Kreskin,
that was a big thing.
That was the first national TV thing I ever did because he produced 2 or 3 specials called Kreskin's Quest, and
Kreskin.
I was the announcer on that.
Yeah, that was Clint's big client.
Yeah,
and he has clients in Vegas now too that he promotes different appearances they're doing around there.
Yeah, he's got this woman who's a ventriloquist, who's April Brucker, I think her name is. I'd never heard of her, except that
because of Clint Billups. Thanks to Clint Billups, I met Rob Branham. Clint owed us money for one of his accounts, and he didn't want to pay us. This is a DRC, and this is the late '70s, and he said, so he came to me and said, "Look, I can't pay you, but here's what I can do. I'm having an event at the Hartford Civic Center, an advertising expo. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I will give you free booth space at the expo. It's worth thousands of dollars." Well, 12 people showed up.
Yeah.
But we'll give you the booth space, and you can be there and broadcast live if you want to, or just be there and just promote yourselves, DRC, as far as the advertising part of it. I said, okay. So we ended up doing that, a couple $1,000, whatever it was. And I'll never forget, Rob Branham, Jay McSorley, and I think Bill Davies, was that his name?
Yep.
Yeah.
Bill Davies came to the expo, and they came over to the booth and just to bullshit with us and everything. And they stopped by, and that's when I met Rob Branham. That was probably 70.
So it was worth it.
77. Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
that was probably Ron. You really bring up a great one, and that was one of the greatest promotions we ever did to benefit the Rob Branham Foundation to get more people registered on the bone marrow registry.
Yeah,
and
the first one
it was at I think it was like in the New Haven
Coliseum, Steve, with TNH. Yeah.
And it was called Grab and Stab. Well, we just called it Grab and Stab. When somebody would walk by the booth, and it was a typical Rob Branham type of pitch, you had 60 seconds to convince that person First of all, you got to let them know who we are. Let them know that with their bone marrow, they could save one life, and they'll be on the. And it was amazing how many people would just come over, roll up their sleeve, but it was so funny because you had to pitch that fast and get them. But that was Branham. And one time, Ron and Rob used to go on the road together sometimes, and the two of them together was a terrifying sight. Both of them rapid machine guns. And I talked to a guy one time, and he started describing both of them perfectly, and how these two men came into his store and really went at him. And I said,
a bald guy and a guy that looked like Ernie from My Three Sons.
And I said, that was the Rob and Ron show. Because you had so much damn fun. You really did.
Remember when Rob went to the jail to try and collect his money? There was a client who owed us money, and Rob was the type of guy, if you owed him money, he would sit outside in front of your house or in front of your store forever until he got paid. Well, there's one guy, I forget who, the situation was so long ago, but he owed us money. Rob said, I'm going over to the Hartford jail. I said, what do you mean? He says, yeah, well, what's his name? He's in jail there. I'm going to try and get my money. I said, Rob, you're not going to be able to collect a debt while the guy's in jail? I said, well, we'll see.
Shankman still owes me money.
Pete has something he wants to play for us, Steve, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
let's not forget this.
And I think Tracy will really appreciate it too. Pete, tell us a little bit about that piece you put together, or you picked up to play for us.
It's really short. It's 5 minutes. John Wolford, who owns Jam Creative Productions and Pam's, the Jingle Company, does a Sunday afternoon show on Rewound Radio. It's people all over the world listen to this thing. He plays oldies, and then about every third or fourth song, he does this feature called Jingle Time. And he talks about how this jingle was made or whatever. Well, this past Sunday was D-Day, and he decided he would do a salute to D-Day by doing a salute to Big D, as in WDRC. And it's real quick, and I think you'll enjoy it, especially if, unlike me, you worked at WDRC. So I'm going to play it for you now.
Rewound Radio, and now for something completely different.
This is Big D in Hartford, WDRC in Hartford, serving the capital region of the Nutmeg State. 1360 in Hartford. It's jingle time on Rewound Radio. Have you heard the news today? Oh boy.
80 years ago, June 6th to be precise, of 1944. That's right, it was D-Day, the invasion of the beaches at Normandy in northern France by troops from the United States, Canada, the UK, and other countries. 326,000 troops. Many lost their lives in the effort, and salute all of them. And I do not mean in any way to diminish the significance and importance of D-Day, but it did strike a little nerve cell that said, D-Day? Well, maybe it can be D-Day at Rewound Radio.
Fun is Big D in Hartford.
So, with a great deal of respect, let us fly off to Hartford, WDRC, which was Big D.
Big D's Big Fun in Hartford. WDRC in Hartford. It's fun. Good morning, the world is fun and free. And you'll agree with Big D. WDRC in Hartford.
These Pam Series 27 jingles really sounded good in the 60s there on Big D, WDRC.
You get a whole lot of WDRC in Hartford. Remember this oldie but goodie. An OBG from Big D. Have fun this weekend where the fun sound is. Here on Big D in Hartford.
Well, time went on, and WDRC used numerous jingle packages from different producers over the years. And at one point in the first half of the 70s, they used a package called Simple and Free, which was, at least according to the box label, done by Thunder Productions.
Your friend Big D, WDRC. Just you and me and WDRC.
The music's all around. Happy sound.
Big D.
Just you and me. WDRC.
Well, yeah, those were fun times. Of course, it was also fun to hear them in their real 60s heyday.
John and Robin of the Incredible, the biggest music in America. Less than 5 at WDRC, AM and FM in Hartford, 4 o'clock. 85 degrees, the weather eye sees sunny skies. And near witness news, hears of death and pursuit. Mike Millard reporting.
Where did they find those guys with that tabloid news delivery? It's great. Well, WDRC AM and FM. I was able to receive the FM on Long Island, believe it or not.
You're listening to the magnificent WDRC in Hartford.
From England, here they are now. From the English part of Chicago. Yes, here is the grassroots.
Eventually, the format moved over to the FM, DRC FM. They continued to use jingles, the Home of the Hits package from Jam, originally made for CBS FM.
102.9, the most music, DRC FM. Motown. Soul. Good time rock and roll. DRC FM.
Just a little salute to Big D. There you go.
Oh, that's cool. Now that was
Very nice.
seriously, Pete. That was a great Father's Day present.
Wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, good. That's right. It is Father's Day, and
Weekend. Yep.
hats off to your father, Steve.
There was a striking similarity between Mike Millard and Lon Landis. Did you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, you mentioned that
Yeah.
yesterday, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Now you can't help but ask Tracy. Tracy, have you heard this before?
Have I heard that? No, I think it's probably recently done. I mean, all the jingles I obviously know. I mean, the
Yeah, John just did this on this past Sunday,
yeah,
and he
it's
has
probably
a
this past Sunday.
yeah, he has a secret place where he uploads it after he trims it down and stuff. He scopes it, and the it ends with the date, the Sunday date, so I know how to download it. So I just downloaded what I heard on Sunday and played it for you.
You know, that whole thing about fun was great. You know, August 18th, 1960. Fun day. Everything was fun. I mean, I heard some of the promotions they did, like, you know, somebody bringing in, you know, a link of chain from a tow truck, or the scavenger hunts they had that first day. I mean, Dave, I know you were probably, you weren't there then, but I know you probably heard about a lot of that stuff.
You know, Steve, your father didn't play every jingle he recorded. He didn't play the whole package at one time. I remember he would go down to Dallas, come back with the whole reel of stuff.
Yeah,
but he wouldn't throw the whole package on the air.
Yeah,
Do you remember that,
there,
Bob?
Yeah, there was one there I never heard before.
Yeah, me too.
In the Friends package, but that Series 27 on Pam's, that thing still holds the test of time.
Oh, it does.
God, what a great package that is.
Especially considering the fact it's 1964 the package was produced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I remember
amazing. That's 60 years ago. 60 years ago.
Tracy accidentally sent me that whole package the other day.
Accidentally?
Yeah, he meant to send me the friends package, but then where your friends are. But so now I have the entire WDRC series 27 here.
Oh, I remember when.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, I remember
If
when.
if anybody wants copies of them, I'll
Oh,
put
yeah.
them up. I don't care.
I
This is a-
remember when Charlie did
awesome.
the simple and free package, and they brought it up, and I had to card it, and I wound up erasing it.
Oh,
God.
Oh,
The funny
Hey.
thing about that package, which John doesn't mention on the whole thing, is that was in between when he left Pam's and started Jam. I believe he engineered that session for the friendly and free for Thunder Tanner at the time.
Yeah, he decided not to mention it after he was started talking. So yeah.
Yes, I noticed it was in kind of missing from there, but just a little
Right.
side fact. And the earliest stuff there is from Roy Ross, who was a DJ at WNEW, and he was doing jingles in the 60s. He died in 68, 69. And those are the ones, serving the capital region of the Nutmeg State, and all those cuts are done by Roy Ross.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it really. I remember 99% of them just because growing up with the Wallensack tape recorder and listening to all of these things, and Dad would go into his bedroom with it and a pad of paper and just start kind of putting together the pieces that he wanted to and what he wanted sung for DRC. And I've mentioned many times before that I had the opportunity to go down there. I think it was 1970. I mean, I know I wasn't old enough to drive yet. And
71.
71. Okay. And I had got to go to one of the sessions, and I have such a mental picture of these guys that came in. I mean, just, these men and women, it was just like, and how incredibly well they took direction on every little thing. But God, and I always loved jingles. I was at, when I was at radio jingles, cable TV jingles, because if you had a client that really got it, oh man, they couldn't wait. And then I ended up, after the last few years I spent with Tommy Russo, L&R Productions, and nothing like, I love spec spots. Spec spots were always magical, but doing a jingle in front of a client, watching the look on their face when you're singing about their company, nothing like it.
You know what Charlie did, and I never have seen it since at other radio stations. He would design jingles. He would do the transitionals. It would a slow song into a jingle that started slow and would punch and into and it always sounded great on the air. But I think it's because of automation and stuff like that that people kind of dropped that by the wayside. You got what you got. It came up in rotation. But boy, the station sounded great when you were paying attention and played the right jingle out of the right song. And Charlie, when I talked about not playing all the jingles at one time, he would retire a jingle and put another jingle in, like 6 months into the the series.
Yeah.
He was classic.
I remember when Charlie came back with the simple and free, and he was listening to the tape. He comes into the production room. We were at 750 Main. Comes into my production room, and he says, "You got to listen to it. Can I hear this on the speakers here and crank it?" I go, yeah, and they were singing the WDRC. Yeah, I said, "Are they saying Z or C?" I said, "Sounds like C." And you keep listening to it. After a while, you're thinking it's Z. And I finally said, "No, it's WDRC." But had me in doubt. I said, "Is it Z?"
He was ready to have them resung, probably.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
He was ready to get it all redone.
Yeah.
But that's the way Charlie was. He would panic. They're saying Z. He must have had about 12 people come into the room to listen to this.
Dave, when you
Jesus
accidentally erased that tape, did you realize that they had another copy at TM or whatever that they could send to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. I did.
Because you were probably panicking.
After I finished my resume, I had the toughest
my
job.
life is over, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had the toughest job is going in and telling Charlie. I said, I went in, I closed the door, and he goes, "What's up?" I said, I bulked the race the master. Don't ask me why I did it, what were the circumstances behind it. Tape was, and I needed a tape right away. Then I looked at it, I could see the white leader in the between the cuts. I went, "Oh no, please, Lord, don't let it be." And it was. And I go, "Ah, God." So, I told Charlie, and he really got mad at me. And I think Corson got it. So, but they made a point where it was a damaged tape, so they had to sent for another one. And we
Damaged
got it like
engineer
3
didn't
days
quite,
later.
damaged engineer didn't quite make it.
Yes.
Yeah, my God, I was sweating bullets. I said,
Now-
"This is it."
now they
I
deliver
remember,
the
Dave, one time you and I were working on a project together, and you went to destroy a reel of tape, and you destroyed the spot where the tape that the spot was on. And the next time I went into your studio, you had all the splicing tape, and you were trying to put it back. These little white pieces of tape. We have tomorrow. What we got? I got a hold of Al Chersey, and I spoke to Tony. And so his son, and both of them radio and television. And Al was with TIC Channel 3 in 1968 to 73. And he was doing radio at the same time. And I got a hold of Tony, and Tony and I were both doing Hot AC back in the 80s. He was at KC 101, and I was doing part-time at KISS. And I said that you guys, it's Father's Day. Last year we did had Robinson's kids come in, and it was great. And I said, so do you think you and your dad would come in? And they're going to speak with us from like 7:30 to 8:30 and just talk about both of their careers and what it's been like, being, living, in somewhat sometimes living in the shadow until you find your way. I never forget that one time my dad was somewhere and they said Charlie Parker, and somebody said, "Geez, you related to Steve Parker?" I'm like, "Yes." So obviously someone new to the business, but yeah, I'm going to see if you guys think you'd be interested. I'm going to
That
see
would be
if
great.
get them
That
to
would be
do
great.
come on and do next Friday maybe, or whenever we can get them.
that'd be great.
The two of them are great.
Sure.
To go.
Yeah,
I
Tony.
remember when Tony was working part-time at DRC, as I think he started as an intern there. Really nice guy. Really nice.
Tony's great guy. Great guy.
He promoted on Facebook that he was going to be on with you and with his dad on with you.
Oh, who mentioned that?
Tony posted about it on Facebook earlier this week.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I spoke to him. He's actually still he's like in communications and media with the city of Meriden, and he works like directly with the mayor and the manager and all that stuff. But you know what I've always loved about I think Tony and Al, they're guys that just go with whatever the flow is, and they can adapt to anything. And I always thought that somebody was really missing the boat by not having those two guys even co-anchor. I just think they have that natural likability with both of them. And
they did work together at Channel 61.
Oh, they did?
For a bit, yeah.
Was what, Tony on the street and Al anchored, or what?
I don't remember, but
maybe
I do.
they may have done their own show together on there, I think.
Well, Tony did sports for many years at 61.
Yeah.
So I think Al might have done weekend news or something. So they might have been together on some newscasts. Not for very long, but they did work there together.
But look at Tony. I mean, when you look at Al in A Story of Survival, holy crap, being a television anchor, crashed an airplane, and his face got destroyed, and they rebuilt his face, and he was back on camera. That's amazing.
He was he was working down in Florida for a while too, and
he was. That's where the plane crash happened.
We were doing a Where Your Friends Are thing, and we were down doing a promotion at Epcot, and I was in the middle of the Magic Kingdom with Goofy and some of the other animals, and then I hear from the side rail, Ted Dallacoo. I turn around and it was Al Tersey that just come down. He was there with his wife and kids, and he had been working down in Florida, and a really nice. I mean, he certainly didn't have to say hello to me.
Nice guy.
Down there, but it was kind of cool. He kept in touch with people up there, and then he came back up after that came back to Connecticut for a while. Wasn't he working at Channel 8 at TNH for a while too?
Channel 8,
yeah.
He worked at all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, and again, he was always one of those guys that no matter who he was speaking to, whether it was on camera or off, he had a way of making you feel so much more important than him.
That's Steve. You hit it right on the head. That was great about Al. If he knew you or didn't know you, when you interacted with him, it was like he's known you for years. And tell me about yourself. Like, how was your family? I mean, he just cared about you. That was the great thing about. And Tony's the same way. Both nice, just gentlemen.
And and Al never wanted to pull up his roots once he got back to Southington, and he was very approachable around town. And, I mean, it's strange with television. And you when you see somebody every single morning for 10, 15 years or any particular time of day where that person is part of your life, it's the weirdest feeling when they don't know who you are or they act like, because it's weird, because you develop a relationship. And you see you don't recognize me like I recognize you, but yeah, they've lost a lot of all of the televisions lost that. I think when we lost Denise DeCenzo, we lost the last big real connection. Joanne was wonderful that way too at Channel 30.
Joanne Nest, yeah, sure.
But, yeah, Denise was somebody who was just class all the way, and it's great that they're carrying her on. But
Denise DeCenzo was one of those people when you met her in person. I was at unfortunately, it was a sad time. It was a funeral, and she knew the person. It was through Sharon Sperling, and she showed up, and I said, "Oh my God, she is beautiful." I mean, on TV, a very attractive woman, newscaster, but when you see her in person, it's like, holy cow, she's a knockout. I mean, really beautiful lady.
I remember the first time I ran into her in the hallway at Channel 3, and I was just a booth announcer who came in a couple of days a week, and she spoke to me, addressed me by name. I said, "Holy crap, Denise knows how the hell she know who the hell I am." She was just such a sweet person.
And I understand she had a great sense of humor too. I think there's there's a great Channel 3 blooper tape out there somewhere, and she always had a great sense of humor.
Yeah, Joanne Nesty is the same way in person as she is on camera.
Yeah.
And I used to have Joanne as a student, and I remember talking with her in Hartford, and she says, "I want to get into television. I want to work at Channel 3. Well, she never made it to Channel 3, but she did Channel 30 for
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. So,
and you couldn't find much more likability between two anchors than her and Jerry together.
Right.
That was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I taught her as well as at CSB, and actually I gave her first gig at YZ to do news, and she was just terrific, a terrific person.
Brilliant. Yep. She could think on her feet. So, I mean, she was never flustered about anything. You're talking about the rapport she had with Jerry. When they both worked at POP, Jerry used to shoot rubber bands at her ass.
I did hear a different voice of Joanne Nesty. Neil Offen had a recording studio in his house, and Joanne would come over there and cut these mock spots. And I'm listening to them. I says, "Who's the woman?" And she said, "It was Joanne Nesty." I nearly fell down. And I said, "That's Joanne Nesty." She did a little old lady. And she's, "Well, I was sitting here." And I go, "That's Joanne Nesty." And then he played a couple other clips I had that he had. And it was Joanne Nesty, and didn't even sound like her. It was like a totally different personality at all. She would have done well in the voiceover world for sure.
She was doing weekend news at TIC when I was working there, and I had to work. I think it was Sunday mornings, and she was doing Sunday morning news. And when she got the chance to audition for Channel 30, and she came and she told me about it, and she said she was so nervous about it. I said, "Joanne, you're great. Just go ahead and do it. You're going to get the job." And it was, I don't think it was more than a couple of weeks or a month later, and she wound up saying that she was leaving, going to Channel 30, and just starting out there. But it was amazing how she thought as much as as good as everyone else had told her up until then, she still thought she wasn't good enough to be on TV. And she
Yeah,
was
but
great.
she's not prissy. You know, she's
No,
not
she was
about
just
she's not
terrific.
about the perfect hair and all this stuff.
Yeah.
She's just real. And I remember she and Pat have been involved, I guess, with the board with the Connecticut network for a long time, with you know, which is like the C-SPAN at the Capitol in Connecticut. And they came in to do a radio spot together. And you never heard two more credible voices come together on a commercial like that. It sounded like they've been together for years. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And she's still like that. She was at the Boobs recently. I think she came down to Farrell's and just sweet as could be, and just spent the evening with us. Really, really nice.
Yeah.
Joanne is a perfect example of all of the great talent that's out there with home studios. I missed seeing Marcia Simon last week, and I'm sorry for my absence with different schedules, but I'm still stupid enough to try and put together a network based on folks who have experience doing 60s and 90s from home, calling them public affairs, getting them sponsored, and splitting the proceeds. I just think it would add so much personality and connection to a station that caters to 45 plus, which is where I think the new money is, plus an inbred caring and love for radio and music and information and local connection.
You all recognize
Amen.
Clark Schmidt, all right?
Yeah.
Hey, Clark, how's the station going?
It's still going. I mean, I can keep it running on a shoestring. I've got wonderful volunteers like John Harper doing weather every day, 3 times a day, and the Space Lady, who's a NASA ambassador, doing a new version of Space Notes for 2 minutes that we run 21 times a week, and they're fascinating. This week, she spotlighted all of the Connecticut industry that has helped NASA, and my star chief scientist, Grady Moats, who keeps us going, and Rob Landry, who is a Rivendell expert. And I'm just trying like hell to connect FM and other stations that are underperforming, because it could be done with no debt, and it could serve a wider area and certainly deliver a need not only in Connecticut, but all over New England.
And what's the website? What's the website for those of
It's
us?
1220watx.com. You can hear it anytime, anywhere. Any contributions in terms of your voice, your style, your commentary would be outstanding. And, it's just a thrill to be here and to listen to DRC commercials.
Well, it'd be fun.
Does anybody care about the top 10? I'm sorry?
Maybe sometime what we should do is, like, just for the heck of it, we'll pick a time and do a group like this and do a group Zoom, and just everybody go right. We don't need call letters or everything, but it'd be fun to say, so and so, so and so, so and so, and so and so, and wishing best of luck to blah blah blah. I think that'd be, and then we could say, and if you want to catch us on YouTube, we're radio friends again. You never know.
Well, certainly possible. And
I just want to let you know, Clark, I'm pulling for you, Clark.
They can be standalone, so you can be you. And the wonderful late Dick Summer did an awful lot of work for me, and he just enjoyed it and he loved hearing it. So it's great. Anybody care about the top 10 that just came out in Hartford?
Oh, how does it look?
Yeah, this was released yesterday. Top 10, Odyssey is 1 and 2, RCH is tops at 9.8, and TIC-FM follows at an 8.9. Number 3 is HCN at 8.3, and those are the top 3 cuming stations in Hartford also. Number 4 with a number 7 cume is The Mix. There's a tie at number 5 between Country YZ and WNPR. They both have a 6.4. It's just that YZ has 100,000 more cume listeners a week. DRC FM is a 5.8, number 7 share, 5 cume. TIC AM is number 8 share, 13 cume with a 4.2. And then we get to 9 at KISS, 3.9. 10 is PLR, 3.5. And a tie at 11 between WMRQ FM and the HD2. They both have a 2.5.
This is all 12 plus, right, Clark?
This is all 12 plus. This is what's
Yeah.
published.
What's the just out of curiosity? What's DRC's cume? The number, the actual number?
Yeah. Sorry.
This is the FM, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The FM cume is 65. No, wait a minute. It's 168.2.
So just to give you an understanding, when I was a sales manager at DRC, our cume never fell below 300,000 a week.
Wow.
I don't doubt
Think
it.
about that.
The number
Never
one
was
cume
less than
right now.
300.
The number one cume right now is Rich at 273.
Yeah, and they used to top 500,000, by the way.
Wow. How are we doing? How are the average quarter hours looking?
I'm sorry?
How's the average quarter hours looking? Do you get that?
What's the actual number?
No, I just have the decimal point.
Shares.
DRC is a 5.8. It's trending upwards, 41, 48, 58, but the number 5 cume usually delivers a number 7 to number 9 share.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what it used to be.
No.
Yeah.
Where was TIC 1080?
TIC 1080 is number 8 with a 65,500 cume. That's number 13 in Hartford.
Ouch.
That's amazing.
Wow.
With TIC, at one point, I think there were at least 700,000, maybe more back in the day.
Bob Steele always had boxcar numbers in the 20s.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. And they just keep,
Wow.
I really believe in what I'm seeing with all of these stations now. They've got so many different revenue streams. They don't have the amount of salespeople they used to have. I'm sure that, I don't know where the budgets have gone between what they
Podcasting. I think big companies have screwed themselves with podcasts.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and they all cross promote, you can listen to any station you want through our podcast.
And then the other thing that's fascinating right now is that all of the big public stations like BUR and GBH in Boston are suffering from cutbacks and management that make huge amounts of money. And there's
Clark,
a lot of waste.
Clark, when would you ever have dreamed that WRKO would be running on the hour WBZ newscasts?
Yeah,
and saying
What?
it's WBZ.
Yeah.
Wow.
We used to simulcast the top of the hour news on WBZ FM because that's how we kept the 5% commitment. And back in the winter of 1971, Westinghouse decided to activate WBZ FM that previously just did simulcasts and Bruins games when there was a conflict on AM. The famous story was that once they played a Just Jazz tape from Ed Beach in New York City on the FM, they loaded the reel backwards and nobody called. But BZFM ended up with the number 6 cume, and that was the only commercials that they could get on the station. So the AM sales folks sold out the newscast saying, hey, you get the FM too. And it worked out very nicely.
The idea of having one station's newscast on another competing station.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's mind-boggling to me.
It's not on the RKO. It's on one of their other AMs as well. I think it's 1200. It's like a 3,000 water. It's a talk station, but you hear the BZ News there. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Wow.
Yep.
Clark, what are your thoughts on the new jib with Garabedian? Have you heard much of it, or?
No, I haven't. I listened the first day. I saw John at Dick Summers Memorial a couple of weeks back. I see mixed reviews. Some are thrilled that the variety is still there. Some are bemoaning the fact that it's playing Queen. So, I really should be tuning in. I just haven't gotten to it.
It's a pretty interesting station.
I would never bet against John Garabedian. I mean, the guy is terrific. He's vibrant. He still cares, and he's got a lot of energy. So
well, when I hear it, a lot of times I'm hearing songs that when I was in high school, and I'm like, oh, okay, so in that respect, it's very positive sounding. Yeah.
All right, guys, I got to wrap it up now.
Yeah,
As you
I gotta leave.
know, you're more than welcome to stay. It's just that Dave Overson is giving me, well, I think that's, oh, yeah, we're number one. Thank you, Dave. But he's
I gotta get going.
so we got to wrap it up. But as I always say, I know some of you guys got to get off to other things. We can hang around a little bit afterwards. But again, I want to thank Pete Sealant, Ted Daliku, Dave Overson, Lee Gordon, John Landry, Bob Craig, Tracy Carmen, Ron Pell, Jim Harrington. There's Jack Lawrence, Dave Nagel, and of course, Clark Smith as the Beaver. No, thank you, thank you so much, everybody, guys. And all of you have a wonderful, happy Father's Day.
Father's
and it's
Day.
amazing with your
Happy Father's Day.
with your
Happy
crazy
Father's Day.
You
lives.
too, Ron.
All of you.
Happy birthday, Donald Trump.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
somebody
birthday,
edit that out for God's sakes. Anyway, but yeah, all of you guys always made sure you had time for family, and you've still got time for each other on Fridays. So thanks a lot, guys. Let me just
Thank you, Steve.
thanks,
thank
Steve. Take care, guys. Good to see you.
Take care.
Your friend has got a lot to share.